Welcome to the Lifework Podcast from Williams Baptist University, where we explore how God shapes our calling, work, and everyday life. Today's guest is Dr. Ruth Provost, our Vice President for Academic Affairs and a longtime member of the Williams family. In this episode, Dr. Provost shares her story growing up in the missions field and how God led her into psychology and teaching, and how a life of service has shaped her calling. Here's Dr. Stan Norman with today's conversation.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Lifework Podcast. Today we are joined by one of my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Ruth Provost, also known as Ruthie? Not known as Ruthie. Okay, so we won't go there today. So if you're out there listening, don't call her up and email her and ask for that name because you won't get a response. Is that fair?
It's fair. Tanya Bolton calls me Ruthie, and she's the only one.
Okay, well, Tanya can get away with it. The rest of us will live in peril if we try to do that. So welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I've been looking forward to this ever since we got on the calendar. To kind of give our viewers, or not viewers, listeners, we used to view, didn't we, Bill? And we don't view anymore, at least for now. But one day we may get back to viewing. We won't get back to viewing. I have a feeling this is going to get cut. So, no, it's not. Anyway, to our listeners, I've been looking forward to this for a while. Ruth has joined the administrative team here. We announced, I guess, at the beginning of the academic year, or no, actually summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was at the end of July.
Yeah, that she got promoted to Vice President for Academic Affairs, and she is a beloved colleague, been here a long time. We're going to get into that in just a moment, but I just want to say how grateful we are that the Lord called you into this role. And in our next episode, we may get into that a little bit more detail of how the Lord led you into that role. But for now, I want our listeners who are not viewing, but the people that are listening, to learn and know more about you. So first of all, tell us about where you grew up. What's home for you?
Okay. Well, for a long time, that was a question I didn't like. Where are you from? Simply because I never knew how to answer it. So my parents were missionaries for a little over 23 years. So I grew up on the mission field. So born in Arkansas.
Okay.
Lived in Arkansas till I was 5.
Okay.
But then they went overseas to the Middle East. So from 5 through I was close to mid-20s before they returned to the field. So for me, 5 to 18, except for 2 years, was all overseas. So I grew up overseas.
Are you able to disclose exactly where that was?
Yeah. Back in the day, the secrecy wasn't there as much as we have today. So we were in Yemen from 1981 to about 1991, 92.
Okay.
And then my parents went on to work in Cyprus, and they were there for about 7 years, I think. And during that time, I was in college and a little bit of graduate school.
Okay. And
then they moved and ended their career in Jordan.
So what was their assignment?
Well, depended on where they were. So in Yemen, the Southern Baptist had a hospital there called Jibla Baptist Hospital, and my dad was a pharmacist, so he served as the pharmacist to that hospital for a number of years. Interestingly enough, during that time he was there, the way Dad always described it was, God took away his desire for pharmacy and put a new vocational interest in his heart. And so he went through a career change while in the field. So God never took away his desire to be a missionary or his calling to be a missionary, but he took away his desire to be a medical missionary, and hence the move to Cyprus and Jordan.
So what was the new assignment?
In Cyprus, I believe he worked for, I think we owned a radio station at that time that transmitted into different areas of the Middle East. And I know they did a lot of correspondence with Lebanon during that time, because I know he was going in and out of Beirut. Well, I don't believe Lebanon and Syria were still at war during that time, but there was still bombing going on when he was traveling. So he did that for a number of years. I honestly, by the time they got to Jordan, I'm not sure what his direct assignment was.
That's okay.
But they worked with a people group. The mission board had gone through the restructuring process, and they were assigned a people group called the Rashada, which were nomadic goat herders.
There is so much here I would like to unpack, but for the sake of time, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Obviously, growing up in that kind of context would be so life-forming, life-shaping. How did growing up, of all the many things that influenced your life, grow up on the mission field in that environment, under serving the Lord that way, what are a couple of things that are come foremost to the mind when someone asks you, how did that impact your life?
Sure. I think a main one was the idea of service. So whatever you were doing, you were to be of service to God. But more so than that, it was that in the Middle East where you couldn't evangelize openly, it was how you behaved. They will know you're different by our love, right?
Okay, yeah.
They will know that you are a Christian and that we're different by how we act and how we treat people. So that is your witness. So that is how you did it. So for my whole life, I've always been very conscious of my actions should reflect my beliefs and my
That's good.
The way I love people, and is a reflection of the love God and Jesus have for me as well as everyone else.
So did you go to the mission field already a follower of Christ, or did it happen while you were there or later on?
No, I was 5 when we went on the mission field, and it wasn't until I was 9 that I had a profession of faith. Okay. So we were in the States on, at the time it was called furlough or home leave. Right. And my dad was attending seminary at Southwestern in Fort Worth. And there was a revival at the church we were going to. And on the same night, my sister and I, after revival, both went to my mom and said that we felt that, that we knew we were sinners, and we knew that we needed to confess to God and repent and believe that Jesus died for our sins to save us and accept him as our Lord and Savior. And so we did that, and the next night we went forward with our confession and announced it to the church and were baptized, I guess shortly after that.
So how long was it after that you guys went back to the mission field?
It would have been the next year. So I was about 9, and I think next year, 10th grade, or 10 years old, we were back on the mission field back in Yemen.
Okay. So you're growing up, following the Lord on the mission field, going to school somewhere?
I homeschooled until I was through 8th grade.
Okay. And
then in 9th grade. So in Yemen, we were on a compound because the government needed to know where we were, what we were doing. And once you got to a certain age, generally you went overseas to boarding school. So I was approaching that age, 9th grade, when I would be going to boarding school, and the decision had to be made. Do I go to Rift Valley Academy in Nairobi, outside of Nairobi, Kenya, or do I go to Black Forest Academy in Kandern, Germany? And I remember my dad growing up crying twice, and one time was when we were having to make this decision, leaving home at 14. And I remember telling him, Dad, I got to go, because there was no one else my age. And the next person my age was my sister, who's 15 months younger than me. And I had no friends. And I knew that I needed friends. I needed to have some friends with people my own age. And so the decision was for me to go to, me and another girl about my age, to go to Germany, because to get to Rift Valley Academy, you had to fly through Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and there was only one flight a week. And my mom was terrified that I would get stuck in Ethiopia all by myself for a week at 14. And so, Germany.
Okay. So you went to high school through Germany?
High school, yes. So 9th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. 10th grade, we were back in the States.
So how did you wind up? So for our listeners, you are an alum.
I am.
Of Williams Baptist College, then now University. Yes. How did you get here? Because it's not like we're on the travel itinerary from Yemen and the Middle East and everything. And, as you're going about the world, you're going to go through Walter Ridge.
Yeah. Actually, a missions counselor named Susan Watson called me.
Wow.
While I was at...
Susan Watson, while
I was in Germany, called me up and said, you should consider coming to Williams. I'd already applied and been accepted to Ouachita. And I decided to change my mind And Washita assigned me a roommate. My dad's like, Ruth, you got to contact him. You got to tell him you're not coming. Because I was like, no, I'm going to Williams. So I did. And
so how did Susan get your name?
I think because I was we were Southern Baptist School, and I believe they published at that time a list of MKs, or missionary kids from Arkansas.
Okay.
And my name was on that list.
Okay.
So
you came here.
So I came.
And you came as a student to study what?
English.
Oh, how did that work out?
I'm an English minor and a psych major.
Okay, so
I switched, I think it was in my sophomore year.
Okay.
Beginning of sophomore year, end of freshman year.
All right, so let's dig down into this, because now we're getting into the part of life where a lot of people begin to wrestle with,
yes,
what am I going to be? Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I here? Kind of stuff. So somewhere in the pilgrimage of Ruth, these issues and questions probably began to come up in your thinking. Do you remember exactly when you began to wrestle with those things?
I always tell my adolescent development class when we were talking about identity and learning who you are and what you want to do. When I was a young kid, I wanted to be a missionary to the moon, because I just knew we were going to have a colony on the moon. And
why not?
Why not? I love space. I'm going to go.
that woke Bill up. Bill's ready to sign up for that.
So I always tell them, I love it here at Williams, but if God ever calls me to the moon, I'm gone.
Hey, I bet Elon Musk could make a way.
So with that, again, I always felt God leading me into service. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't think I was, once I got older, I didn't think it was missions. I didn't feel that call necessarily, but always wanting to help people. So I love to read. I love literature. And so English major made sense in my head, because I love books. What better than to study books? And because I thought, I should have a job someday. Perhaps I'll do secondary education and teach English. About this time, I'm 17 and deciding on these things. And my dad says, have you considered counseling? And I said, no, I don't want to do that, Dad. What are you talking about? So I thought, well, maybe I'll do guidance counseling or something like that later on. So I came in with the psychology minor.
Okay.
And I took my second psychology class and realized this I like way better than English.
Really?
Yeah, I was reading a textbook. I know, how often does that happen as a student? But I was. And with that, the chapter was on preventative measures for preventing mental illness. And it just
sounds like warm reading to me.
Just captured my imagination. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to help people.
Okay. So then it wasn't kind of lightning bolt from heaven thing?
No, I don't think so.
So how do you think God was orchestrating all that? Hindsight being 2020, so to speak.
Hindsight being 2020. Well, when I was in grad school, I had to do a project where we created a genogram, a map of your family, and you had to track through you, your parents, your grandparents. And part of that was who they are, when they married, when they died, when they were born, but also what they did. And as I have a very small family, and as I was going through the family, there was one theme that came up throughout that, and that was service. And so I think for me, it was all about serving God and serving others. So I'm a psychologist. My sister, her training is in social work. Both of us. Why? It goes back to service and what we learned from our parents, that you serve others, you serve the Lord. And this is one way to do that is through your vocation.
So part of your vocational shaping came from your parents.
Yes.
And their vocation.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what kinds of things, you mentioned service, were there any other things from your parents that impressed you that maybe shaped your life direction and your calling?
Different ways of helping people. So,
okay.
I mean, there's pharmacy, you're helping through medication, you're helping serve that way. Missions, definitely more so, I think, than pharmacy, was what it means to be a missionary. And sometimes it's overt, like you hear about people evangelizing and telling others of God. For us, because of where we always served, it was much more covert than that. It was much more through your actions, through your kindness, who you're talking to, and how you love other people. whether that's support. My mom fed a lot of people over the years, doctors and nurses who didn't have time to cook for themselves or who were single. They were always welcome at our table. And doing things like that. And later on, it was my mom ministered through, she had a quilting group that she was a part of, and in Cyprus for ladies who are not just Cypriot, but any multiple nationalities. And so they would learn to quilt and have the opportunity sometimes to share about God's love. So
you move into psychology, you're going to major in that, but you didn't want to be a counselor.
No.
So help me and maybe others listening think, okay, what do you do with a psychology degree and study if you're not counseling? How does that translate into helping?
So this is why I have a doctorate degree, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I thought I'll go to school until I figure it out.
It's the long stall.
It is. It is. Very much so. So it wasn't so much counseling, and it was, there are many different avenues in psychology that look so different. So my interest was in neuropsychology, the brain. And I was very interested in testing, because testing is very scripted. So they give you a script, you read, and then you give the test, and the person does the test, and then you score it and interpret those results. And I was like, okay, I can do that. Somebody's telling me what to say for that. But so that's kind of where that was one of the areas of emphasis in grad school, was in neuropsych testing that I did. And then when I was in my third year, I had the opportunity to go to Alaska for the summer and do what we called kind of an internship there at a Christian counseling center. And University of Alaska Fairbanks is in Fairbanks, Alaska, where I was. And they found out there were 2 people in town who had a master's degree and were in a doctoral program. And I was contacted and asked if I wanted to adjunct for the summer, teach a summer class. And I said, sure, I've never done that before. And all through grad school, I was struggling with what I was going to do, because I liked testing, but I wasn't passionate about testing. And it wasn't the thing. You know the thing, and it wasn't the thing.
Yeah.
So I taught my first class, and I walked in the next day to see my friend and tell him how it went. And I just grinned, and he's like, "You found your thing." I was like, "I found my thing." Yeah, it was teaching. And so from then on, that was, how do I now take a clinical degree and translate it into a teaching degree?
Good for you. So looking back, sort of taking an aspectual perspective on all this, how do you think God was leading in all this? Obviously, He orchestrates the events of our life.
He does.
Did you have moments where you began to sense the presence of God prompting, pushing, guiding, leading in this?
In many ways. So first off, where to go to grad school. So I applied to several different grad schools and had interviews at 2 doctoral programs, one at Wheaton College in Illinois and one at Spalding University in Louisville, Kentucky. And I liked Louisville. I thought that's where I want to go. But I wasn't accepted at Louisville. I was waitlisted for Wheaton. And I got the first waitlist spot. So I was accepted quite quickly into the program. And that was all God, because I thought I knew best. I have a history of thinking I know best, and I don't. God does. He sent me to Wheaton, and there I met a wonderful couple, John and Arthur DeRuyter, and they were non-traditional students. John was in the program. They were from Alaska, became great friends with them. And when it came time for John to go back, wanting to go back to Alaska for the pre-doctoral internship, there weren't any in Alaska. We would have to create one, and he needed another person. At the time, my parents were still overseas. My sister was in Tennessee at school. There was no reason for me to come back to Arkansas, and I was open to a great adventure. So I said, I'll go to Alaska. So I did, and that's where I fell in love with teaching. That's where I had an opportunity to learn more about grace and love and God's providence, and it led me back here.
So how did you get back here?
I got a phone call from Dr. Paul Rhodes,
who
was the chair of the psychology department at that time, as well as one of my mentors. So I had been his work study for many years. Mom and Dad had come back to the States. And so my sister had gotten married. And so I was looking, okay, it's time to go back to Arkansas. I'll be closer to home. So I began looking for a teaching spot in the lower 48. And I was in the process of interviewing at Trinity International Seminary for a teaching spot there. And I get a phone call from Paul one day. He's like, "We have permission to add a third person to the psychology department, and we want you. Can you come interview?"
Wow.
And I said, "Okay."
Yeah. And here you are.
And here I am.
So as we're after the first part of this conversation, I'm going to put you on the spot. Is that okay?
That is okay.
What would this Ruth tell the Ruth about to go to boarding school, about calling, about purpose, about God working in your life? What would you share with her in light of what you have learned today?
I would tell her to be humble and have faith, to trust in the Lord and not worry about all the little things, but to trust in Him and to be obedient. When you sense His call, to adjust your life and be obedient to Him, and not try to run away, not try to think that you know the best, but focus on Him and His Word.
Was there ever a period in your life where you were running away?
Not necessarily running away, but there have been times in my life where I definitely thought I knew better than God, and wanted something for my life. Maybe wanted to not go to another Christian school. I'd been in Christian school since homeschool to boarding school to college and grad school. I thought I wanted to go to Spalding. I thought I wanted to go to a non-Christian school and experience academic life at a secular university. And obviously I did not need that. God knew that. And He orchestrated it, so I knew that too.
Well, very grateful that He did.
Me too.
So thank you for joining us on this episode. I look forward to the next one where we pick up the conversation.